Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at another Micro Galaxy Squadron ship. It's the Razor Crest, inspired by the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Yes. Somehow the Razor Crest has returned. Let's get started with the unboxing. Right away, the packaging is pretty clean. Or it would be if Amazon had delivered it in a box. It came in a paper bag, I kid you not. I'm not primarily an inbox collector, so on this occasion it doesn't bother me too much. But at the same time, it is pretty careless to stick a product in a paper bag without any kind of protection. So this box is pretty beat up with creases and dents and corner damage. But it looks like everything inside is secured well and the ship is safe and sound. I really do like these Micro Galaxy Squadron boxes with the blue and the silver. They really stand out. And if you are an inbox collector, I'm sure these look fantastic on a shelf. There's a nice window display. You can see the Razor Crest really clearly. And this is Series 9, and it's number 0235. On the side of the box, there's some cool artwork. And then on the rear of the box, we find the cutout card with the blueprint of the Razor Crest, and there's some illustrations of the various features of the ship. The same on the other side. And there's also some Arabic, which you can have a go at translating. So let's crack it open and let it breathe. So I'll tell you what, I'll get this out of the plastic because that is a noisy business, and then we can take a closer look. Now, that was definitely well secured in that box. And just before we leave the box behind, it does state that this is from the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, which at the time of filming will be released in a few weeks. And inside the box, there is a backdrop, the curvature of a planet. And this is the kind of thing you could use as the backdrop to a shelf display, if you so desired. I don't use these, but it's really nice to have them as part of the presentation. The first thing I'm noticing is the paint, or more to the point, the lack of it. When I first saw this ship in photographs and videos, I thought it looked like bare unpainted plastic. Now, it does look a lot better in person. And I'll have to wait until we see it on the big screen to see how metallic silver or gunmetal grey the new one is. We have a few hints of it here and there. But for the most part, this is more of a flat grey. The yellow markings are much more prominent and brighter, less weathered and worn as they were on the original ship. But yeah, it looks good. It looks good. The ship has a few features, nothing crazy, but enough to give it some play or display value. So we'll get started up front with the cockpit, which flips open, and inside we find our pilot seat for the Mandalorian, the hint of a control panel, and behind the pilot seat there is a pedestal, which I'm assuming is for Grogu, but I don't think it's the Grogu that comes with this ship. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's for his hover pram. And then behind the little pedestal there are a couple of seats. And as with all of these Micro Galaxy Squadron ships that I have in my collection or that I've had a look at, the cockpit area is pretty flat. There's no color. There's no paint apps to indicate control panels, buttons, or dials. And if it had that, it would really set it apart. But moving on the side of the ship, we have our side hatch, our doorway, which flips down. We have some texture. And then inside, you can see a weapons rack. Now, keep that in mind because we're going to come back to it shortly. But you can get a little glimpse of the inside of the Razor Crest. But as we continue down the side of the ship, there is another removable panel, which again gives us a little bit more of a view inside. And at the rear of the ship, there is a hatch, another flip down hatch. And we can also remove one of the engine panels, revealing some interior sculpting and more of that metallic silver paintwork. And this is how I thought the whole ship would look. Nice to get it here though. And we have some sculpting on that rear access ramp, just to give you a bit of grip if you're making your way up into the Razor Crest. And there we go, we get another glimpse of those engine exhausts, that lovely copper color. And then inside there's a little bit of kind of a mustard yellow paint apps in there. Looks really good. I love this color here. But that's not all, because this top panel is also removable. And that gives us a really good view and good access inside the ship. And inside we find lots of detailed sculpting. But once again, it's flat. There are no paint apps. And to be honest, I can understand why. Because I think to do that would make these models prohibitively expensive. But I am glad they go to the lengths that they do to give us this attention to detail. And this unit here is the carbon freezing chamber with this flip up door. We had that on the original Razor Crest. And here is where the frozen prisoners were suspended. And we'll come back to this in a few moments. So those are the removable panels. And then on the bottom of the Razor Crest, we have the landing gear, which just flips out and flips down and does the job nicely. But it's missing one thing that I think is essential, and that is a display stand or a flight stand. And this is a ship that really deserves to have one. We get one microfigure, the Mandalorian with Grogu peeking over his shoulder. So let's get them out of their little case. On the back of the case we have that little card with the blueprint of the Mandalorian. And we'll just pull the little tray out. And there we have them. So we have a weapons rack. More about that in a second. And we have our microfigure. So let's take a closer look. And here we have the Mandalorian with his Beskar armor. Finely detailed. Great sculpting once again on these tiny little 1-inch figures. The only disappointing thing is on his helmet there's no indication of the visor. Just some black apps there would have made a big difference. can see the shaping of the gauntlets, the various features, whistling birds and flamethrowers and all of that. There's the ridges on his shoulder pads and also the design of his helmet. And there on his back there is the peg hole, and that's where his jetpack and Grogu are going to go. And we'll get a close-up look at Grogu. And there he is. And look at the facial features. The little ears, even the little fingers. That is going the extra mile on something so small. Really impressive. And here we have the Mandalorian with his jetpack and Grogu attached. Now this connection is not very firm. And I imagine this is something that could get easily lost. It looks fabulous. Well done, Jazwares. We don't get a second figure, which is a real disappointment. A Zeb would have been nice, although I do think he showed up in a Target exclusive. What do we get? We get this weapons rack, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me at all, since there already is a weapons rack in the ship. So where does this go, you might wonder? And this is where it is located, where the carbon frozen prisoners used to hang. And that little peg hole, I believe, is for Mando's jetpack. So we'll have to wait and see. Does he have a second weapons rack in the movie? He certainly does in his Micro Galaxy Squadron Razor Crest. So let's get this ship back together, and it's comparison time. This is the HasLab Razor Crest. And yeah, the difference is ridiculous. This thing is an absolute beast. Huge, insanely detailed, packed with features, and it's basically the definitive version of the ship. Next to it, the Micro Galaxy version looks like its little sibling, or maybe the Razor Crest after a long time in the dryer. But here's the thing, they're kind of doing different jobs. The HasLab is a centerpiece, a collector's showstopper. This one, it's small, it's affordable, it's easy to display, and honestly, it's still really charming. It's really not about which is better. We won't see a Razor Crest of this scale again. At least we shouldn't, as the HasLab project was unique and only possible via crowdfunding. So this little one is a great option for any Star Wars fans who want to have something from the new movie in their collection. This is a solid little model. For the size and the price point, around £30 here in the UK, it packs a lot more detail than you'd think. And let's be real, if you're a fan of the Razor Crest, you weren't going to skip on this one anyway. So let me know in the comments, did you pick it up? Are you amped for the new movie? And which version of the Razor Crest do you prefer? And if you're still out there and you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future Star Wars content. And I'll see you in the next one.